Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Matthew Moreno. Joining us as I stumbled through it on Sunday night is again Anthony Witrado. We told you guys we were going to be going live shortly after Roki Sasaki came out of the game. Sure enough, here we are. We apologize for the slight delay. Anthony, we're going to do a little bit of deeper dive into Sasaki, but sort of first reaction, certainly a lot of excitement seeing him against the Reds.
Yeah, I'll keep this part of it short because I know we're going to get a little deeper. But the thing that I was sort of surprised by, maybe surprise is too strong, but just like it made me stop and notice, was his poise. And I know it's Cactus League and, all of that stuff, but I think that considering it was his first time doing this, maybe the night game added a little bit more juice or whatever, but he looked like he's been doing this at this level for a couple of years. Like he just looked comfortable. And I think that was what jumped out to me.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, we'll get into kind of some of the more specifics. I want to thank everybody who's joining us right now. It is the middle of the game. The Dodgers did take the lead. It's now in the ninth inning. They're leading 4-2. They rallied for 3 runs there in the 8th to jump ahead. I want to thank everybody who's joining us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. As a reminder, if you are on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. We got a bunch of content rolling out. As you've seen, we're putting up Jeff's interviews with players. Right now, we're averaging about 1 a day. We're trying to space things out. Blake's going to be going to Tokyo, so we're going to have a ton of stuff there. Spoiler alert, maybe even some Disney things that he might share here. But yeah, and if you're listening on podcasts after the fact, we appreciate that as well. Apple, Spotify, Google. Please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Before we get into Sasaki, and there's also some injury stuff that the Dodgers are dealing with in camp these past few weeks, and certainly something that came about today. Let's touch on Yamamoto, obviously the starter. A little rough early on. It's as you said, and we said it on Sunday, it's spring training, and we can't have it both ways. When things are great, we can't sit here and say, oh, look at like all this greatness. And if in Yamamoto's case, he gives up a couple runs, we can't say he's terrible and this and that. Similar to Sasaki, he did work out of a little bit of trouble. I think the big news here in Yamamoto's case is that he got through 4 innings. And yes, he allowed the 4 hits, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts. The bigger goal is, of course, the Tokyo series and his opening day start. And so getting to 4 innings at this point, I think, was certainly encouraging.
Yeah, being around spring training camps long enough, you start to understand like these guys really aren't like they're not showing off everything they have. They're really trying to work on certain things. Not saying he was doing this tonight, but like as an example, a guy might go out there and go, this is my 2nd or 3rd start. Tonight, I want to work on really controlling this part of the zone or really work on this pitch. And even if you're essentially tipping it by being predictable, they're okay with that. It's not so much about the result. It's more about how do they feel with that particular thing they're trying to work on. And again, I don't know that Yamamoto was doing that. My point, my larger point, just being though that the trouble, the results, all of that stuff. Fine, like whatever. The bigger thing is that he's getting stretched out and he's getting ready for opening day because it's early, so you don't expect him to go like 7 or 8, but you don't want him to go out there and like give you 3. Like that's a little bit of a waste. So the fact that he's getting himself stretched out, that was a good sign. And also like aside from the trouble, a little bit of trouble he got in, he actually looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like his stuff looked good.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, obviously it's easy to say because some of his first 2 starts were sort of uneven. They were shorter. This was definitely the best one we've seen from Yamamoto. And I think you make a great point of with spring training, a lot of times these pitchers, as you mentioned, might be working on something specific. We haven't heard from Yamamoto yet tonight. I know that after his start against was it the Brewers or the A's? I forgot which team he faced. I believe it was the Brewers. He said he was working on, I think it might have been the fastball. Like he was working on something specific to that outing. And you saw like the Brewers, I think, ended up hitting a couple home runs off of him. And so, yes, that is going to happen. But as you mentioned, if the pitchers and the pitching coaches kind of go into the game with this plan of, hey, I want to work on locating my fastball to the outside corner or whatever the case is, like
Exactly.
you get some of the blips on the radar.
Yeah. Because like I said, you become predictable. Because the guys know, hey, and look, hitters want to look good too, especially guys like maybe trying to make a team or something like that. So if they can get a little edge and say, hey, I can find a barrel because I know that he's going to go, sliders away or something like that. And you cheat a little bit and you get it, you double or something like that, then so be it. But for the pitcher and for the people who are paying attention to what he's doing, that might not matter so much.
All right, we have our first super chat of the night, so let's get to this really quick, and it is on topic, so that's perfect. Kevin, thank you for the support. It says, you guys worried about Yama? No, I mean, I know we were maybe we were dancing around it a little bit, but no, I mean, not worried at all. Again, the biggest takeaway with Yamamoto tonight is he went 4 innings. And as Anthony mentioned, like, yes, he might not throw a complete game on opening day, but somebody like him, you probably want to get him in position to go 6 innings. This is not his rookie year anymore where he's fully adjusting to life as a major league pitcher. There's been a lot of talk throughout camp, both from Dave Roberts and Yamamoto himself, saying how much more confident and comfortable he is and things like that. And so he's looking forward to, a better season, a healthier season. And at this point, like, the Dodgers needed to, not that they're going to go completely to a traditional MLB starting schedule for him. I think they'll still look to give. I mean, the Dodgers do that anyway, whether it's Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow. But I think you will see, they might be willing to push him now. Whereas in South Korea last year, it might have been, hey, let's get 5 innings and, that's good. Whereas now you're probably looking at, can we get 6, maybe 6 1/3 from him?
Yeah, honestly, like if he got 6 in his first start, given the condensed spring for him, with that start coming earlier, I would be surprised and happy about that. I think he would have to be efficient to get there. I would guess they might say if he can give us 5, we'll be good with that.
Yeah.
Just because it's start number 1 and it's happening earlier than it typically might.
And even Cole is saying, I'm fine if he goes 4 innings in Japan too. It's still a short spring. Yeah. I mean, yes, that is certainly fair. And I didn't mean to, I think it came out strong. Like, I didn't mean to imply that Yamamoto needs to go 6, but I think he's certainly, if that was going to happen, it's more likely this year rather than heading into his rookie season last year. But to your point, and as I mentioned on Sunday, the Dodgers, the way they're going to be able to kind of put their roster together, they'll have a bunch of relievers because they don't need the surplus of starters the way you would in a regular season, because they'll be able to reset their active roster for the home opener as well.
And those guys will have, if they need them, multiple days off coming back.
Yeah. So, definitely look, to answer Kevin's super chat again, no concern about Yoshinobu Yamamoto tonight at all. All right. I think the big topic obviously is Roki Sasaki. There was Anthony. We discussed him sort of at length in a bit of a preview on our show Sunday. A lot of complaints on how the Dodgers had been handling him and babying him, if you will. And now here we go. Sasaki gets into a Cactus League game. I sort of raised some curiosity. I thought it was a little curious that he was pitching out of the bullpen rather than starting. You mentioned, a lot of that is just scheduling and the Dodgers having a short spring. You touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the show, but what stood out most with Sasaki tonight?
Yeah, I mentioned at the top of the show that his poise, kind of stood out for me. So that was really nice to see. But wow, this guy's stuff is real. And I mean, we saw the highlights, right? You go back and you watch the WBC games and all of that stuff. And great. For this being his first time out, and not just as a Dodger, but kind of getting this atmosphere in, boy, that stuff looks really good. I mean, he was mostly splitter sinker, I think. Got it 98, 99 with that sinker. But that splitter, I mean, he can control it to both sides. Yeah. And the depth of it is like, man, I was super, super impressed for this being his first outing like that. Yeah. That splitter is already elite. Like if that's what it's going to be looking like, boy, I mean, look, I'm not putting the Cy Young on this guy's head yet, but like for a first start, for his stuff to look like that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing up the splitter specifically. It was causing some confusion. The good thing about Sasaki's first Cactus League start coming at Camelback Ranch is it's one of the Cactus League ballparks that has kind of the tracking data that everybody wants to. I joke that all the nerds want to absorb and look and dive into. But the movement, in all seriousness, the movement on his splitter caused some confusion initially. I think it was being described or it's being logged as a changeup, and they had to kind of go back and fix it because it moved basically to both sides of the plate, and that's not something you're accustomed to seeing.
Right. And I saw it, and I was like, I was just kind of like, what is that? And I saw the velocity, and then I saw him throw another splitter, and I was like, well, you heard that he has that he can move it both ways. Like, I didn't know it was like that. Like, I mean, that thing was ducking to both sides, and that was pretty impressive. Like I said, I think if this is his first outing and that stuff, it's going to get refined, obviously. Also, the Cactus League is notorious for the ball not being as grippy there.
Mm-hmm.
They do things, and when they rub it up, it's stuff like that, but it's not exactly the same. And so you figure, he gets into LA, the ball's a little better for him. His stuff's maybe a little more refined. That splitter becomes one of the more devastating pitches in Major League Baseball, I think, if that's what it's going to continue to evolve as.
Yeah, and real quick, I mean, if you want to run through the box score, Sasaki went 3 innings, which I think was, the goal for him. So you got 4 from Yamamoto, 3 from Sasaki. I think a pretty perfect pitching night for the Dodgers from that standpoint, kind of going in with what they planned. 5 strikeouts. He did give up 2 hits. One, I think, or both may have been doubles. I know one for certain was. I guess if you want to sort of nitpick anything, it's that the fastball looks a little hittable right now. Maybe not a whole, like the velocity is there, not a whole lot of movement, but again, no concern. Like I know nobody's asking if you guys if we're worried about Sasaki, but I would chalk it up to similar with Yamamoto. Like really no concern in anything. Honestly, for me, it was a vote of confidence because we did hear that Sasaki handled we joked about it, but it was a hybrid B game for his spring training debut.
Right.
Obviously, giving up the leadoff home run to the White Sox prospect made the headlines. What I think sort of flew under the radar was that Sasaki settled in after that home run, and he got through 3 innings. And the plan that day was only for him to go 2, but he spoke to Mark Pryor during the outing. They felt fine, so he did 3. So you have those 3 innings. You have now these 3 innings in the Cactus League, which everybody wanted to see, and kind of a little bit more, not a little bit more, in a major league setting, if you will. And now, I mean, I think, is it safe to say, I know Dave Roberts over the weekend sort of backtracked a little bit when we talked about, whether Sasaki would be starting the second game against the Cubs. I think, is it back on? Can we pencil him back in?
Okay. So my first thought after he was done, or like when it was pretty obvious he wasn't coming back out, my first thought was, he kind of lines up to start now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think a couple of things, just the way his stuff looked, the fact that he was able to give him 3 and look pretty good doing it. Like that thought crept into my head, like, okay, maybe they are downplaying it, and there's probably good reason. They don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. And if they think he's not ready, they don't want to have to pull that name back, right? Like that would be, that's bad. But it looks like he is lining up to be an option for that game. Let's say that. I think if they wanted him to, it's trending in that direction that he would be able to.
Yeah, so just looking at the schedule really quick, obviously, the Dodgers don't have much time left in Arizona. If he's pitching kind of once a week, he started tonight, you're looking at, he would have to probably pitch again on the 11th. I don't know if they would move him up to Monday the 10th. But if he starts one of those 2 games and fares well again, or I mean, even if it's, it's not, what I mean by farewell is it's not like he can only go 1 inning because it's just a bad outing and stuff like that. Not so much results specifically, more just the length of stretching out.
Yeah.
That then, to your point, that leaves him lined up to start again once the following week on the 19th. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. As he got through, I think, his second inning, I thought, okay, like I could see him being penciled back into the Cubs, the Tokyo series again against the Cubs. But I agree to your point. I don't know. Dave Roberts is not going to come out tonight and say, yes, he's starting.
No,
I don't think he'll come out tomorrow and say, yes, he's starting. I think he'll say, something along the lines of, we have the option. It makes sense. It could be. And then maybe make it official probably next week after Sasaki makes another Cactus League appearance.
Yeah. And if they're comfortable with him, like, let's say going 4 in that start, he's totally an option for that. And if I think the fact that he gave him 3 tonight, 5, because they're going to be careful with him, right? So like that's why I'm talking in these terms. I think the progression here is that 5 could be in play once he does get to that date. So yeah, I think they're downplaying a little bit for obvious reasons, but I think the way things are going, he is lining up to be an option for that second game for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We have another super chat. This one's from JY Kim. It says, while busy preparing for the game, Roki has also donated 10 million yen and 500 sets of bedding to his hometown in Japan that is combating wildfires. I had not heard that news,
Awesome.
and this is great. Yeah, that's terrific. We've seen Otani get involved in helping the community here, and also in Japan last year. I remember he did a big baseball gloves, I think, donation to schools. Sasaki, I forgot what exactly his wording was, but he did reference during his introductory press conference at Dodger Stadium, because it was around the time of some of the wildfires had started, and I know he referenced wanting to kind of uplift the community with his performance. And so to hear this is going on back home, unfortunately, our thoughts are with everybody being impacted, obviously, in Japan. Us in Southern California just went through it, and it is terrible. So it's great to see Sasaki doing that. And JY Kim, thank you for sharing that news with us. We're glad to be able to share it, pass it along to our audience. We're up to the game just ended. We're up to over 1,000 people in here tonight, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. All right, Anthony, anything else you want to put a little bow on Sasaki discussion before we move on to some injury stuff?
Yeah. I think that you can probably hear it in what I've said already, but just like thoroughly impressed by his first appearance. Like as good as I think you could have asked for, given the situation, length and stuff, very impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially you could also throw in the expectations. As much as you and I and Jeff and Blake and Daniel, Scott, everybody that we've had on here have tried to temper those, the reality is the majority of the people are expecting basically Rookie of the Year, Cy Young caliber stuff from him right out of the gate. And in some sense, I think you got that tonight.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see him throw again. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into some injury stuff. We're going to start with Will Smith. If you haven't been up to speed on everything that's sort of been happening, Will Smith was slow to get into Cactus League games this year. He was still catching bullpen sessions, participating in live BP, things of that nature. Dave Roberts was vague in describing just as an ankle injury that he'd been dealing with. As more details from Dave Roberts and Will Smith have come out, it's since been revealed that Smith has a pretty bad bone bruise on his left ankle. Dave Roberts initially thought it was a right ankle injury. It is, in fact, a left ankle. So it's 50% chance there that he got it right. And unfortunately, Dave whiffed on that one. Spring training for everybody, including the injury updates from the manager. What's most interesting, if you will, about this is Will Smith revealed he rolled it on a stolen base. Or I don't know if it was a stolen base attempt or just sliding into second base against the Yankees last June. And it has basically lingered since then. Now, I understand it was going to bother him throughout last season, right? Because the bone bruise, like you need rest, stuff like that. And that just wasn't, baseball schedule doesn't allow for that unless the Dodgers were going to put him on the shelf for a month. What I'm a little worried about is we went into the offseason where, like, theoretically, yes, you're still working out and being active, but it doesn't necessarily seem to have gotten a whole lot better. And Will Smith said himself, like, the Dodgers, like, we're trying to look into why it hasn't gone away. We're just discussing it. Opening day Tokyo series right around the corner. Is this a concern? Like Freddie Freeman's ankle, he has said, he's not going to be 100% through the first half. Now Will Smith is dealing with his own issue as well.
Yeah, it's not ideal. He sort of started to figure it out late in the season there a little bit. So it maybe didn't affect him completely. He was still throwing guys out too. So that was interesting when we found out when it actually happened. I think if they were overly concerned about it, he wouldn't necessarily be playing right now. So I'm kind of like not sure what to think about it because he's out there. So it is concerning that it didn't get any better, during that downtime, because guys will take, 4, 6, 8 weeks off before they really kind of start to ramp up again with baseball stuff. And so in that time that it didn't get any better, that is concerning. And it's a bone bruise, and those, like, there's not a lot you can do for that kind of stuff. I understand. So I don't know. I'm not the doctor there. I'm not on that training staff, but yeah, it's not good news. I'll say that. And I do wonder now, with this understanding, if once the season does start, like once they're stateside and the season gets going and they're playing every day, how they sort of manage this time and what that looks like, and what that might look like for somebody like Dalton Rushing. Like that question is probably a little farther off than we need to be concerned about right now. But I think it puts that into play if they decide, you know what, this is a good time to give Will a 10-day stretch off, like that kind of situation. You wonder, because if that thing's not going to get any better, with treatment necessarily, then there's gonna be time where I think he's gonna have to miss, even if it's just like 2 games of a series, or that kind of stuff where they're just trying to keep him off his feet.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, was about possibly looking to make a move with Will Smith. What I'm sort of worried about, if you will, is I don't see 10 days. I don't even see, limiting him to maybe 1 game out of 3 in the series for some reason. Like, that's not going to necessarily heal it, I don't believe. I could be wrong, but just given the information that we have and how recovery has sort of gone at this point, like, I am wondering, and how I was going to phrase it to you, like, should there maybe be consideration to start? We know that you can kind of play right now, and Smith was in the lineup tonight. He was hit by a pitch on his left knee. I saw Dave Roberts, some reports, some tweets were coming in right now as we're doing this. Smith was pinch run for after he was hit by a pitch, but Dave said that was the plan, and he wasn't going to catch another inning. It was just kind of precaution that he was taken out of the game. So that's good to hear.
And Fiducia would be I guess Fiducia would be the guy, right? Maybe not necessarily Rushing, even though they were talking about Rushing and catching.
Right. So that's to circling back to the question I was going to ask you, is like, does it maybe make sense just to start the season on the injured list if we need to give this a month? Because I guess alternatively, he played through it last year, right? But we also saw what Will Smith was playing like, and he's not one to use the injury as an excuse. And maybe It wasn't, he said it bothered him more only when he was running, not when he was hitting. Fine. Dave Roberts and players have also said that their swing and their mechanics start from the feet up. And if your left foot is compromised, that's part of your batting stance. Like, I imagine it makes it a little bit harder to keep your mechanics in line. So considering that, I would almost think that it might just be most beneficial to just start the season on the injured list. If it takes a month, it takes a month. If it takes 6 weeks, it takes 6 weeks. I said it before, I'll say it again. This team is playing for October. Having Will Smith available in middle of March and then into April, but maybe hindered at the end of the regular season and into the playoffs, that's not a trade-off. And I think if they do that, if it's a long-term thing, I think, yes, Dalton Rushing enters the conversation. I do see people asking if it would be Rushing getting his opportunity. If it's a scenario where they say, look, just start the season active, and then they need to make a move in the middle of April or something like that, I think it is Fiducia at that point.
Yeah, I would agree there. The interesting thing is, you talk about, maybe he starts the season on the IL. Like, why is he playing right now? And maybe it's a situation where they think, like, look, this thing's not going to get any better by him just doing nothing. So we might as well get him out there if it's only really bothering him when he runs. I think I heard something or saw something that it's like it doesn't so much affect him when he's behind the plate or in the box. It's kind of more when he runs. Then maybe they're like, we're going to live with this and we're going to manage it, because if they know him just sitting isn't going to make it necessarily, it's not going to speed up the healing time, and maybe he damage it more by playing, then maybe they just run him out there. Because I think if they were really considering, like, this is going to be a problem, we want to try to get this better, I don't think he would be playing now.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with you. Laura's saying, not to pick on you, Laura, but she says bone bruise sounds so minor, and then she has the shrug emoji. I get it. It quote unquote is just a bone bruise, but
Sure.
I've heard from other athletes, whether, when I've gone to Laker games and covered those or on the Dodgers side, bone bruises are painful. And what's challenging is Anthony mentioned it, like there's not necessarily like a clear like plan of treatment. Some of it is just rest and needing to let it heal on its own. And I think ice maybe helps to a certain degree in other types of treatment, but reality is it sort of just needs to pass on its own. There's only so much you can sort of do compared to other injuries that maybe you can kind of treat up and recover a little quicker. But yeah, I mean, look, he's been dealing with this in June, so it's not, unfortunately, not a minor issue. I'm sure he and the Dodgers would have hoped for that. Laura also did a super chat, not related to Will Smith, but asking about Haesung Kim. She wants to know odds that Kim starts the season in the minors. I'm at like at least 75%.
Yeah, I would say right now a lot stronger that he does than he doesn't.
Yeah.
I think the moving him around positionally is them just trying to see what options they might have with him if he does stay up. If he starts in the minors, I think you're going to see a lot of that, though. I think you're going to see a lot of like moving him around to see what he can give them. So that way, whenever he does come up, the options for him to actually get playing time are greater. But yeah, I think as of right now, my guess is that he would, like if camp broke today, I think he would go to Oklahoma City.
Yeah. And what was most telling for me, and I've expressed it on the different shows we've done, I don't know if I did on Sunday or not, Dave Roberts coming out and acknowledging that is a possibility was pretty telling to me, because he's typically not that doing that means he wasn't protecting Kim, but typically stuff like roster moves, roster decisions, stuff like he's look, we were discussing the Sasaki thing. He's not going to come out and say, yes, Sasaki is definitely starting, because as you pointed out, if they need to make a change for some reason, that then creates its own media firestorm because of the backlash of, well, what did he do wrong? Why are you guys going away from that?
Right.
So to come out in this same light and say that, yes, Kim's bat he does need to improve. He's working through some adjustments there. Starting in the minors might make sense. That to me was the most talent. Like at that point, I realized, okay, he probably is going to end up being sent to OKC.
Yeah, and they're fortunate because they have options, right? Like they can do some things with the roster. Basically, like he's not a need at the moment. Like if he was playing well, that's a huge plus, but it's a little bit of a luxury. Like I think they have options to do other things with that lineup. And so that's probably where they go at least to start the season.
Yeah, and it could be good for Kim. Like if he's still, he is working through hitting adjustments, and so let him do that in OKC. Less pressure, less attention, and then if he gets on track, the Dodgers will certainly bring him up. And I mean, at that point, we'll have to see. I know we discussed some of the infield and center field stuff on our last show, so at that point, I'd be curious to see where Kim sort of fits into the picture.
Yeah.
All right. Our next injury update is on Edgardo Henriquez. If you missed it, Dave Roberts told Henriquez was seen in the clubhouse wearing a boot on his left foot. Dave Roberts then was asked about it before tonight's game, and he doesn't seem too happy about it. All he said is that Henriquez is not a candidate for the opening day roster, which, considering Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol, all these guys being ruled out already for the Tokyo series, Henriquez was probably somebody, coupled with those injuries, coupled with, as we mentioned, the expanded bullpen the Dodgers have, Henriquez was probably somebody who was going to be in that group.
He had a shot, yeah.
Now he's not, and I know, let me read it here. Dave was asked about his injury after the game, and all he's offering right now is that it happened away from the field. Other than that, he didn't want to get into any details. Henriquez is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. And the fact that Dave didn't want to, like, he's in the doghouse. There's no question about it. Like, if it were a non-ridiculous injury, then, probably Dave talks about it. I don't think this is like, a wear and tear issue, or he fell wrong on it when he was throwing a bullpen or something like that. Like I'm guessing it's something that the Dodgers are pretty pissed about.
Yeah.
Which is why he doesn't want to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, he was a guy who would have been in the mix for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, I think now. And, Michael Grove is another one who's not going to be ready to be in the bullpen for opening day. And I know he's not the most popular name, but he is experienced and he is serviceable for the Dodgers. He does excel when they let him face right-handed hitters primarily in one-inning spurts. When they start to have Grove go multiple innings, that's when things go sideways. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think, people like Ben Kasparius, Landon Knack, Justin Robleski, even maybe, like, those are the types of guys now that there's an opportunity probably in front of them, because you have 4 or 5 different relief pitchers that the Dodgers are up to that won't be available come opening day. And in Henriquez's case, it'll be at least a month from now. So that puts him, I mean, and I don't know if he was going to be with the team. I guess he could have been, because Kopech and Phillips don't seem like they're returning necessarily anytime soon. So Henriquez might have been with them in Tokyo and the domestic opening day. And this now looks like it's off the table for him. And hopefully it's whatever happened is just a learning process for a young player.
You hope so. And you hope he works his way back. Like he's in the right organization for to get himself out of this doghouse, because even if guys are performing well, the Dodgers tend to make a lot of moves with their bullpen and just their arms in general. So he may cycle back through. But yeah, I mean, there are some organizations where they'll be like, all right, see ya. Like you won't be in this clubhouse for the rest of the summer, like that kind of thing, right? So I don't think the Dodgers are that organization. But it's a missed opportunity for him. There's no question about it.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some questions. We have probably about 15, 20 or so minutes to answer anything you guys want to ask. As a reminder, just please start it with the word question in all caps. It makes it easier for Anthony and I to find as we're scrolling through the different comments. And as we're waiting for those to come in, Anthony, my question to you is, you're doubting that Steph Curry shoots the way I do?
Oh my goodness. I had to read the tweet twice that you sent out, because I thought I misread it at first, or that you meant something different. And I just realized that no, you meant that you fall into zones the way Steph Curry fell into a zone in Paris and helped Team USA win the gold medal. I will say this. You look like a guy that if you put him on the basketball court, he's probably not going to do much. But if you get the ball in his hands, he can make a jumper.
That's fair. See, so I agree with the second part of that. The rest of our staff, Ryan, Daniel, they will all tell you that, yes, I am a shooter. I argue that I can do other things as well. It's just I shoot so well that everybody the attention only goes to that. But I don't like to be pigeonholed. I don't like to be put in just the box. So I fight the perception of me. But you did have that second part right. I definitely can get into a zone. And me, Steph Curry, maybe Reggie Miller, you could put him in our category as well. Yeah. Klay Thompson, me, Clay, and Steph, I think are the Splash Brothers. I'm the third one that just gets overlooked every now and then.
That's fair. That's fair. And it's good to know that you're more of an all-around player than you get credit for.
Yes. I need to remind people every now and then. All right, we have some questions here, so thank you for that. A super chat from Curry says, "Will Dustin May make the Tokyo trip?" Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention him when I was rattling off the guys who are going to be benefiting from some of the injuries that have piled. I think Dustin May certainly is at the top of that list.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Off the top of my head, I don't recall how they handled Korea. You probably might remember this, but in terms of what the roster construction was, what did the bullpen look like? How many relievers did they take?
I think they might have done 10. I think they did their 2 starters. They might have had a third starter just to be safe.
Right. Right.
I'm pretty sure. I think. Or they could have just felt comfortable with, because they're also going to have a taxi squad of players. So maybe they just stash the third starter on that, because if they need him, it would be an IL situation type thing. So they might go 11 relievers. Yeah,
I think so. So I would say he probably does go. He probably makes the trip.
Yeah. I know, not to completely sidetrack, but I think you and Jeff have had this debate on the role for Dustin May. I think, were
Yeah.
you pushing against a bullpen role for him?
I was saying, I think they have to try him out in the rotation first. That was sort of my stance on it. And Jeff's stance was that he thinks he could excel in the bullpen. And also it was partly because like the other guy's Gonsolin is like, a sub-3 ERA kind of potential guy, right? Like he's good. And so that was sort of the debate. And part of what I was saying was that I think the Dodgers really need to see what they have with May. And so they may want him to start and to get a look at him in that way. And that may determine how they handle him the rest of the time that he's a Dodger. Maybe that means do they explore moving him on? Do they say, you know what, you're going to be a reliever for us going forward? Like, how does that work out? And Jeff brought on a good point, is that he's going to be a free agent soon. And like, do the Dodgers really want to commit to him? And that's a fair question. I think, though, to have a real answer to that, they need to know what he looks like as a starter.
That's a good point. I think the other aspect too that might be getting overlooked with all of this is, yes, I know the velocity and all that plays up in the bullpen, and that's why everybody's been saying for years, put him in the bullpen. He's also had 2 right elbow surgeries.
Yes.
Is he somebody who's going to be able to withstand, maybe, and he wouldn't go back to back right away. Like, obviously, if they decide he's going to the bullpen, it would be a cautious kind of transition and how he's phased into that role. But bullpen pitchers typically appear more often than a starter, unless he's some sort of long reliever that does work on like a starter schedule still. That's the other sort of wrinkle that I think would need to be sorted out, is will his body be able to withstand a potential increase in workload that way?
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think that's interesting that you bring that part of it in, because Jeff talked about the injury history also, but as a negative for it being a starter. So I think depending on how you enter the spin zone, right, you can play that both ways for him. Yeah.
Well, Jeff hates cheese, so if he was arguing the other way about injuries, then my way is definitely the right viewpoint.
Fair.
All right, let's get to more of these questions. Don't care 187 wants to know, when does Ellie De La Cruz become a Dodger?
Oh boy. When we talked on Sunday, like, I think we got asked, like, who do you basically like, who's a guy that you like to watch? And as my non-Dodger answer, it was Ellie De La Cruz. He feels, he really solidifies any infield questions if he were to come over, like, just like tomorrow.
Wait, I thought Mookie at shortstop has solidified all the infield questions. That's what I've been told.
Well, then that just makes it solidifies center field, right? Because he slides over to short, Mookie goes to second, Evan goes to center.
Yeah.
Yada yada. No, I mean, he is I think he's a budding superstar type of player.
Yeah. Our admin wants to know what Blake should do on a 12-hour flight to Tokyo. The admin is asking for a friend who the friend may or may not be Blake. So as we're answering questions from all you guys, if you could help out admin who will relay those answers to Blake, that would be great.
Take melatonin, NyQuil, I don't know, a gummy, something. I like sleep. And download a lot of Netflix.
So Blake, Blake will probably be watching a lot of Star Wars. We'll just leave it at that. Machine Kelly wants to know, did you also enjoy Dalton Rushing barking at the pitcher for hitting his foot? Love the zest. I missed that. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see that exchange happen. If he did, if he felt maybe a pitcher was a little wild up there and he needed to get it under control, then hey, let him know. Alleluia One says, thoughts on Pages center field showing he has looked ... Oof. Yeah, I mean, we discussed Pages on Sunday, and you and I both, the Dodgers are in an unfortunate situation where what Pages brings offensively is offset in some regard defensively. What Outman brings defensively is offset offensively. And so there's sort of, it's kind of pick your poison right now.
Yeah, and we said I thought the gap offensively between Outman and Pages was larger than the defensive gap between those two, with Pages having the edge offensively. So, yeah, I mean, they've kind of really tried to play up the fact that he's been working hard and getting better at that position for Pages. And look, there's only so much you can do. If the guy is not if he's not a center fielder, then he's going to look bad from time to time. And so if he's the guy out there, which I'd be fine, like I'm fine. If they decide it's Pages in center field and Edman goes to second, cool, all good. You just hope he hits, because he has to hit to make up for what they might lose in center field. Because right now, if he is the guy out there, that defensive outfield is pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there wouldn't be a lot of fly balls hit to the gap then for those guys out there.
A lot of deep positioning by the outfielders, I would think.
Yeah. Laura wants to know, if you get one free Dodger player jersey, what's your choice?
Mookie for me. Mookie's my favorite player.
I think I'll go a specific one. I think Walker Buehler, kind of the road gray with the World Series patch on it, would be cool, just because of how that ended. So getting that type of jersey would be fun. But that's, I mean, I'm cheating because he's not a current player, obviously.
Yeah. We went to we went to Game 2 of the NLDS last year, and when we were there, I bought my dad the real deal Ohtani jersey.
Nice. Those are expensive.
Yeah,
they're nice. They're nice, but they're TQT says, isn't Taylor a sunk cost at this point, especially with it being his last year on his contract? Just cut bait. I mean, you could make the argument, yes, but also we haven't seen the Dodgers really do that a whole ton. I know they did it. They did it with Hayward, and that was surprising. I was convinced. I didn't think that they would, because they typically haven't.
Yeah, and Hayward wasn't making that money, though.
Right. And also, I know Hayward quickly established himself as a respected figure in the clubhouse, but he wasn't Chris Taylor, about to be around 10 years with the team.
Correct. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different situation there for a couple of reasons, like you mentioned. But yeah, this front office's history has not been to cut bait on guys like that, especially when they're making that much money. I still think they're going to try to get something out of him if they can't move him. I don't think they just cut ties like that. I think they also he's clearly been a guy that they're okay with having around. Whatever he does for clubhouse culture or that kind of thing. Also, he played 2 or 3 positions. I think that helps him, kind of stick around a little bit too. I do think, though, that if we get into the season, he's going to break camp with the club. That is my prediction, unless they can find, like, if someone's like, hey, we'll take Chris Taylor from you, sure. But I think he starts the season with the team. If we get a couple of months in or something like that, and it's just he looks lost still, then I think that conversation has a lot more relevance. Because they would have already paid him some of that contract at least, and then
that's true.
It's not as big a hit.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we'll answer a couple more here. As a reminder, if you have a question, just please start it with the word "question" in all caps. At this rate, I'm warning everybody, we are tracking to finish with something food related. So I know not everybody always loves that when we get to that portion of the show, but we are a couple questions away from that. Ayum wants to know, did Roki Sasaki look big wingspan wise on the mound? How does his splitter move both ways? Is it okay for him to be doing 99 miles an hour this early? Yes, the velocity is perfectly fine. You won't, whether Sasaki or any pitcher, you're not going to see them peaking right now in terms of velocity at this point. So no worries there. How does his splitter move both ways? You have to ask Sasaki. That's what makes him special and the coveted pitcher that he was coming out of Japan. Wingspan wise, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that. Anything stick out to you in terms of his wingspan?
Yeah. He looks long. He does look long. Like that's something you do notice. It was very similar to Dustin May. I think he really it stands out a little more when those guys are thin. You know, when they have the thin build like both of those guys do. But yeah, he does look long. And yeah, I think that velocity comes out natural. Like he doesn't look like he's having to pump it. And so I think that's just when he lets the ball go, it's coming out like that. So I think he's fine. Yeah, just an impressive opening outing for him.
Yeah, definitely. Although I did not on the show, but I did joke with some of our guys that like Sasaki couldn't dial it up to 100. Like he was just settling for 99 every single time. Like, come on, let's
you got to leave something in the tank for the next team.
All right, couple more here. Edgardo said, I heard Smith has an injury. Does this mean Barnes becomes the catcher for opening day? And what's the outlook for James Outman this season? Don't want to fully rehash the Will Smith discussion, Edgardo, but if you missed it, we discussed it maybe 15-ish minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. So definitely rewind once we're done here. Will Smith is dealing with a bone bruise on his left ankle. He said it bothers him more when running and not necessarily, Edgardo, you're saying you did miss it. So yeah, here, I'm trying to summarize it just because we did have a lot of the same people here, so I don't want to completely bore them. Will Smith said it bothers him when it's running. They're not necessarily sure why the bone bruise has lingered this long. They're trying to look into it. There doesn't necessarily seem to be much concern. Anthony and I sort of kicked around the possibility of maybe being on the IL. Anything long-term, I think maybe Dalton Rushing enters the conversation. Anything short-term, yes, Austin Barnes. Not necessarily for opening day. I think there hasn't been any indication from anybody that Will Smith won't be in the lineup for opening day. But Barnes and Fiducia would be the two guys that kind of, maybe emerge if it's anything sort of short-term there.
Yeah.
And again, Edgardo, I apologize. Wasn't trying to fully rush through that, but we did, kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. So definitely rewind and you'll get more thoughts there. Here, Machine Kelly wants to know, was Sasaki's biggest nemesis tonight his hat? I didn't notice it. A lot of people were saying his hat looked too big or was too big for him.
I think that's just the way he looks.
He's a skinny kid. He's a skinny kid.
Right.
He's gonna grow. He's gonna grow into the hat. All right. Last one here, unless we get something that trickles in. Cole says, "Are you guys McDonald's Shamrock Shake fans, or do you prefer Wendy's Frosties?" I have not had the Shamrock Shake
ever.
I think ever. It's mint, right?
Ooh, it's Shamrock.
Well, isn't it just mint?
Look, it's Shamrock. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's mint.
I did see our admin was advocating for it.
I like Wendy's Frosties. Nothing wrong with those. But when it's Shamrock Shake season,
Yeah, say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, it's legit, man. Since I was a kid.
Really?
And nothing else tastes like it. Like, you go get like a mint milkshake somewhere. It doesn't taste like a Shamrock Shake.
So I have never had one in my life. Maybe I'll need to hop after we finish this. Maybe I'll hop off and go try. But I'm not a huge mint person, so I don't know if I'll. Although, excuse me, it is Shamrock. It's not mint, so maybe I'll like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big mint guy either, but it's pretty good. I also think like part of it is just nostalgia because like I've been drinking those ones since I was a kid. Like I said, like they've had that thing forever.
Okay, what is Shamrock Shake season? Does it start in March or February?
I would assume like the start of March. That's a good question. I don't know exactly, but it's obviously a St. Patrick's Day kind of thing. So I would imagine when March hits, it goes up there.
Oh, our admin is saying they get out in front of it.
Yeah, he might know. He might know.
All right. Well, Anthony, the next time you go, we're gonna bully you into you have to tweet a picture of your Shamrock Shake.
All right, I got you.
Our admin is also saying Blake sent it to the group chat when it re-released. Okay.
There you go. All right.
Careful, admin. You're getting close to revealing yourself, unless you were somebody else in that group chat. I don't know. I did see one other question here that I thought we discussed it. Dong says, in honor of the original pantry closing, which restaurant would you consider an LA icon with cultural and historic significance to the city?
Oh, that's a good question. 2 things popped into my head immediately. Actually, well, Laura makes a great point, Langers, which I think you referenced that on Sunday, right, Matt? Yeah. Two places popped into my head immediately as I was reading that question: El Cholo, and Roscoe's. And that's not to say that they're like necessarily the best at what they do, but like LA icon with cultural and historic significance, I think those two places kind of fit the bill.
Yeah, I was gonna go Deuce says Philippe's. I think that's one. Laura
Good one.
saying Langers. That's also one that we agree with. But I think also if you say Langers, you could probably throw Cantors into that same
Sure.
group, same
Sure.
discussion. And I also think Cielito Lindo, the taquitos place at
Yeah.
Alvera Street. I think
Yeah.
one's definitely up there as well. Machine Kelly says Dark Horse is Dino's Chicken. That's I don't go. I haven't been there a lot, but I know that it's popular and it is beloved. It's got a little bit of a cult following. All right. I think.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, that was a good question. I think that'll probably do it. I see people are trying to peer pressure me into getting the shake for the next show that we do, and I'll do a live test. I don't know. It's not up my alley. Maybe if we'll have to tell our admin that Blake has to eat squid or something again out in Tokyo, and then maybe I'll taste test the shake on a show. He tries that, and I'll try the shake, and we could call it even.
There you go.
All right, that's gonna do it for us tonight. Thank you, everybody. This was a great show. You know, we got to discuss Roki Sasaki's debut, Yamamoto stretching out, positives there, some concerns with Will Smith, unfortunate Edgardo Henriquez injury, but things overall, Dodgers are getting closer, one day off at a time of getting ready to board their flight to Tokyo, and the start of the season is going to be here before we know it. In the meantime, I will be back on Thursday night. I'll probably have Sebastian with me. I know we've tried to get him incorporated in some live shows here and there, and so with some scheduling things, it worked out that he's able to join us. I think we might do a little bit more of a just kind of previewing. You guys will be with us, a little bit more of a mailbag kind of focus show, answering questions you guys have rather than going over news. Unless, of course, there are significant updates, we'll obviously cover that and get into all that. But we want to also give you guys a chance to be involved in our shows. And so I think Sebastian might do a little bit more of a mailbag type episode that night, but we'll let you know. But for now, Thursday, I believe probably about 7:10. But as a reminder, if you're watching us on YouTube, and even if you're not, come check us out, Dodger Blue 1958. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. You'll get alerted once we go live, once we post some interviews Jeff has recorded. We still have a bunch coming. So once again, thank you, everybody. That's Anthony. I'm Matthew, and we'll see you next time.